Action you've never seen races across your screen as you thrill to a new dimension in picture making. Carnival of Souls. This is the shocking story of a who crawled from the river to race through a nightmare, walking a tightrope between heaven and hell. From the unreal, she crashes through to reality. But try as she will to lead a normal life, she is torn from her goal. There's no privacy in a life she's ever watched, tormented. Either it's her neighbor, desirous of her physically, watching her with his leering eye, or it's the evil eye of the man who taunts her, the man who wants her. From the bottom of the river they come. They reach for her. They demand that she dance with them at the Carnival of Souls. She is a girl driven mad by the relentless forces of the beyond. He will not relent as he comes for her again and again. She whirls between the real and the unreal, trying to cling to life.
I like being with you, really I do. I don't want to be alone tonight. I want to be near you.
Honey, you don't want to go in there all by yourself, do you?
But she must watch herself in death. She must dance at the Carnival of Souls held just for her. For they have come for her for the last time, claiming her as one of their own. Carnival of Souls arouses such emotion that the management has been forced to state positively no refunds. Carnival of Souls is the shocker of all time, guaranteed to sweep you into a new dimension of picture making. You can't afford to miss Carnival of Souls.
The wandering spirit of a woman is lost among her way to realizing her ghoulish doom, trailblazing for an early 60s film that set the tone for the cult classic David Lynch's early in career masterpiece that is essentially the beginning framework for his future surrealist, dreamlike projects to come. It's artistic surrealism and fever dream logic put to screen, and in one of the most absurd, mysterious, and otherworldly ways possible. It serves as an eye into inner paranoia, inner fears, and inner perceptions of the struggles of parenthood, all accompanied by this droning soundscape of the dream world that reflects the dreary and hopelessness of the interdimensional environment. There's some body horror, as well as quirky, disconnected dialogue, and odd behaviors that don't make sense on the surface, but they work well in this.
I bet that scared you, didn't it?
This is one of the earliest entries of the found footage horror genre and one of the biggest entries of the very niche mock live television broadcast genre. This was actually a live TV event on BBC One on Halloween night, and by the end of it, created a UK audience hysteria similar to the War of the Worlds broadcast in 1938. It's a ghost hunting-esque investigation-styled production that used real news personalities to further sell the legitimacy. A haunted house situation where a British family is being occupied by a spirit that one of the daughters named Pipes, and shows the news crew's investigation, interviews with members of this family, and two hosts in studio having discussions, doing analysis, and taking callers. The broadcast was ripe with sporadic creepy moments of Pipes popping up in the background of camera shots and audio recordings being analyzed by the hosts. It's very unsolved mysteries, and a much needed to see at least once haunted house film if that's your thing.
Come on, Peter. There's your suit.
It's heartening to see so many strange new faces here today. I know my mom would be very touched and probably a little suspicious. My mother was a very secretive and private woman. It's Grandma. You know you were her favorite, right? Even when you were a little baby, she wouldn't let me feed you because she needed to feed you. She was a very difficult woman, which maybe explains me.
I recognize you from your mother.
What? Sometimes I swear I can feel them in the room.
Oh my God! What's that?
She isn't gone.
She had private rituals, private friends.
Who's gonna take care of me?
You don't think I'm gonna take care of you?
But when you die...
She wasn't altogether there. At the end.
I don't like this. Dad, I don't like this.
What's happening? Peter! Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother! Please stop! Mom, what's happening? Make it stop! Make it stop!
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
One of the greatest horror films made in the 2010s. From start to finish, avant-garde crisp cinematography and camera work, incredibly dismal and grim score, and very visceral depiction and subjects of mourning, death, funerals, trauma, familial disorder, and generational curses and demonic strongholds passed down. Really intense, captivating, and emotion-heavy with added deeply spiritual plot points that tie into the story of this family undergoing a series of losses and internal dissolve that leads to the hauntingly eerie finale that showcases the inner workings of ancient cults. Toni Collette acts her ass off in this, and her sorrowful pain after a cascade of sequentially devastating events is unsettlingly felt. Top-notch film experience all the way around. One of the best selections of Ari Aster's directional catalog. This was his directional debut, and a major highlight in A24's independent film set of releases.
From Hollywood, California, where stars make dreams and dreams make stars.
do you want to see?
You have a new role to play, I hear.
Up for a roll.
No. I definitely heard that you have it. Action.
Damn! This sounds like dialogue from our script.
Cut it. What the bloody hell's going on?
It was good. Oh, please.
Our producers know the history of this film, and they've taken it on themselves not to pass on that information to us. Purposefully.
Something's wrong. Do you love me?
It's a story that happened yesterday, but I know it's tomorrow.
Don't you remember anything? How it was?
One of the best fever dream-like productions ever put on the theatrical screen, and David Lynch's best theatrical film he's ever directed, wrote, produced, and edited. If you ever wanted to experience a surrealist masterpiece of strangeness and obscurity, laced with low-resolution mid-2000s digital video visuals, this is the go-to. It's jagged and disjointed in dialogue and plot, which was how it was actually filmed, piece by piece, organically, scene by scene. It feels like a dark, dreary, and absurd dream that you're watching a digital recording of the next morning, and the lo-fi visuals, unconventional for a feature film of its kind from an acclaimed director so late in his career, feeds even more into the abnormal events and otherworldly environments the characters are located in. Laura Dern was the perfect casting choice for this, and it really shows her versatility and emotional depth, especially during monologues or during climactic moments. This is what I call surrealist and absurdist horror, and it's one of the top best in the category. It's a weird dream times 10 that you'd have at 3 a.m. that you wake up sweaty from, and it doesn't care to appeal to the high-quality camera checkbox for a different aesthetic or atmospheric gratification, and I love it for that.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Hey, sweetie.
Morning, guys.
I would really like to... He's not in a coma. They don't know what to call it. Dalton's room. There was something in there with him. I know someone who can help.
We took tri-field and EMF readings of the whole house. Wiring, alarm clocks.
I don't think bad wiring is the problem here.
I want to leave. I want to leave this house. What is it?
It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
One of the top paranormal haunted house films of the recent 2010s and beyond. It's a 1959 Twilight Zone episode on steroids, dealing with an other-dimensional portal, but with classic horror pacing and scares. It's visually appetizing, yet simple, utilizes a very minimal score, and correctly places loud piano jolts at just the right moments, yet effectively uses Tiny Tim's Tiptoe Through the Tulips with Me, and knows how to rely on strange atmosphere and spooky imagery or sounds to fully keep you invested. It actually breaks usual haunted house tropes by including the family moving from one home to another, only for the demonic hauntings to continue because they are attached to the son's spirit and body instead of the usual connotation that spirits are attached to one location and cannot relocate. The popular quote-unquote "just move out" statement is shown to be completely useless. There are legit very well done spooky sightings of the paranormal. The set design for the mysterious and otherworldly spiritual realm depicted is downright perfect and contains incredibly eerie scenes nicely scattered throughout that are honestly a handful of the best moments in horror, period. Unique execution and direction from James Wan and the entire crew that sets the high standard for modern paranormal films. This is how it should be done in the modern era, and it sets that precedent and formula that puts the newer run-of-the-mill cash cow horror films to shame.
Night of total terror. Night of the living dead, the dead who live on living flesh. The dead whose haunted souls hunt the living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. Of the living dead. A bizarre adventure in fear. An experience in shock more shattering than your strangest nightmare. Night of the living dead. A night with the dead who cannot die. A night of total terror. Night of the living dead.
I remember the first time I saw a small snippet of a scene from this movie. It was back in middle school in the really early morning on November 1st, and it was playing on a cable channel. It was a small scene of a helicopter hovering and lowering over a field, and just that one scene emitted a mystique that stuck with me. I eventually saw the entire film, and in 2018 I saw the film in 4K at the AMC theatrical re-release in October. What can I say about this film that hasn't already been said? It's groundbreaking, ahead of its time cinematically, and just a really intense and unsettling experience with a memorable, eerie soundtrack. Has one of the most well-known and recognizable cinematic quotes known in modern history. "They're coming to get you, Barbara." Nobody had made a film like it before, and very few have captured that same horrific claustrophobia, isolated nighttime dread, and real-time unfolding of unknown events after it. It's a horror staple when the genre is in discussion and still holds up to this day, which I must commend George A. Romero, Dwayne Jones, Judith O'Dea, Carl Hardman, Marilyn Eastman, and all the crew who were involved. Just the score alone sets it apart, since it was essentially pre-existing public access, but it worked so well with establishing the feel of the project. You automatically know the score and the film it was used for when you hear it. Timeless piece of media that even 50 plus years later, especially after the 4K remaster, still looks visually phenomenal with great focus on shadows and light. Also, the fact that it was in black and white in 1968 due to cost is hilariously cool, since it gained much more by being in black and white than it ever has in the full color restorations. Great social commentary at the final scene that doesn't take away from the movie, but adds more disturbing quality to the end credits, accompanied with the droning, bleak score, closing it out over the end credit imagery.
High def camera on. My girlfriend Katie, she thinks there's something in the house. I don't know.
You believe me, right?
I think we're gonna have a very interesting time capturing whatever paranormal phenomena is occurring or is not occurring. Windows are locked, doors are locked, alarm is on. Hearing a weird sound.
Something's here. I feel it breathing on me.
There's footsteps in, but there's no footsteps out.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
If you do try to play games with it, that's inviting it in.
Jesus, looks like something bit you.
It's not the house, it's me.
You cannot run from this. It will follow you.
I'm in control.
You're not in control. What's happening to me?
This thing left a message.
If it's not a ghost, what is it?
I saw this in the theater opening night in college, and let's just say I was spooked the rest of the night after I got back to my place. This is one of the first releases that sparked a resurgence of paranormal horror films and of the found footage subgenre that were actually disturbing after a drought that took up the first half of the 2000s due to the oversaturation of slasher films and parody horror comedies. This thing was big, and I recall it being a big deal upon its release. This is everything you'd want in a paranormal found footage film. It's realistically presented, heavy on tension and suspense building, and does not care if the camera has to be inactive in order to deliver troubled atmosphere and strong unknown presence. Looks like it was shot on a handheld video camera without it looking super cheap, and a non-existent standard score that is purposefully replaced with booming and strange sounds, footsteps, and other audible receipts of the haunting taking place. Play this with a home theater stereo system, and it has some of the best brooding bass that complements the happenings on screen. The events of the hauntings significantly build up and are so well done without explicitly portraying any spirit and form other than shadows and other physical manifestations.
What? 'Cause I don't want to. 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 'Cause I
a compelling exploration into our fear of the unknown. Rorschach, what will you see?
This is one of the hidden, unlocked characters of the modern found footage horror genre. It's an independent and under-the-radar project, has 2.5 million YouTube views since its release, that can carry itself as just as ambitious as any major studio production, and can walk alongside The Conjuring, which will pop up on my list as far as unsettling content is concerned. I watched this for the first time some months ago, and it legitimately creeped me out to the point similar to when first seeing Paranormal Activity for the first time. It's not well known, and only a niche amount of people know about it, but man oh man, does this thing do it. That's what she said. The film depicts a family being haunted by unknown entities, and a couple of paranormal investigators that come out to the house to conduct their investigation while spending the night. They hear inhuman, torturous screaming in the house vents, inanimate objects moved by themselves, loud banging in the deceased grandmother's room, twisting doorknobs of locked doors when there's no one behind it, etc. It's atmospheric like crazy due to it taking place in a secluded rural area and neighborhood, which drives it much more home for viewers that grew up with those types of environments. Zero score other than a specific scene containing a certain doll, and other scenes depicting the sounds inside the home. It's quite an eerie experience that the producers and directors knows how to create, with just the soul-disturbing nature of the various supernatural events that are not too over the top, but still noteworthy and weird. Highly recommended independent film. Yet another independently made and low-budget film that accomplishes the subtle and simple yet unsettling and creative hauntings. Definitely not one of the most known paranormal found footage films, but it's being talked about and recommended in the community and beyond. And it's entirely in black and white, which even more so is an interesting directional decision. Yet the lo-fi quality and colorless palette makes it unique and adds more to the mystique and eeriness because things appear more gritty, incoherent, raw, and like something you'd find on the dark web. It's about a newlywed couple that takes a bet from someone that will grant them a big payoff if they stay in a certain house for a specific amount of time, and to close out each day with the video goodnight. It starts out small, but as each day passes, the spooky events amp up, and it's likely coming from the tormented souls of the previous homeowners. It's good stuff.
I get my own room.
Oh,
you
really?
You're the young one. I call it on the room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10. First clap.
Let me try with pleasure hands.
Clap. I'm gonna get you now. I can hear you breathing. You took your blindfold off. I win. I was in Christine and Nancy's room.
Girls, it's way past your bedtime.
Who's ever down there? I'm gonna lock you in now. Ah! Help! Andrea! Help!
This is single-handedly one of the most trailblazing haunted house big-budget, theatrically released films of the turn of the century. Authentically early 70s vintage, immensely atmospheric, and old-school, quote-unquote, rural backwoods creepy. It focuses on a family that moves into a house with multiple spirits and demonic entities occupying the home and the overall land, all mostly due to whatever atrociously sorrowful and dark things that happened upon that same land decades upon decades ago. Residual energy. The family, of course, unknowingly knows about any of the land's history until spiritual visitations in the day and the night, rancid smells, and other phenomenon start taking place. So in effect, the Warren couple and other crew are contacted to investigate. There are scenes in this that are definitely freaky, and the hide and clap moment in broad daylight with the old-fashioned clock going off is one of the best horror scenes ever mustered up, period. The director James Wan, as well as all of the production crew for wardrobe design, set design, cinematography, etc., knocked it out the park. There is one weak part towards the end that is a bit too run-of-the-mill formulaic that feels like it doesn't fit with the rest of the movie though. But it is in my top 30 for the other 70 to 80% of the film.
This is my home. Get out now.
No, this is not your house. Now, what's your name?
My name is Bill Wilkins, and I'm 72 years old.
What do you make of that voice?
Sounds confused. Is he senile?
The voice on this tape is coming from an 11-year-old girl. calling it England's Amityville. There is a family that desperately needs our help.
After everything we've seen, there isn't much that rattles either of us anymore. But this one still haunts me. Does it feel like the voice is coming from inside you?
More like it's coming from behind me. Like I'm being used.
Janet, are you all right?
Stop calling me
Janet.
She's such a good girl. What's there wrong with her?
An oppressing spirit will try to force you to commit the ultimate sin.
And what's that?
Murder, suicide, or both.
You believe us, don't you?
Sensing a presence?
I'm not sensing anything. All I can sense is their own fear.
Honey, you're bleeding. What is happening?
I had a premonition of your death.
Who's that?
The family's just a pawn. Something inhuman wants to kill you. If we keep doing this, you're going to die.
Might as well follow up The Conjuring with the sequel. Compared to its predecessor, The Conjuring offers the same technique of vintage time periods. This go round in London, circa 1977, and utilization of old school era frights, but with more usage of updated special effects and CGI to give more of a epic action feel that honestly dampers the throwback vibe that was generally perfect in the first act and definitely in the first film. It introduces two new beings, one of which would branch off into its own franchise that did not make the list, and the other was a one and done side detour towards the middle that honestly did nothing for the plot and could have been omitted completely. Regardless of those things, I only really include this in my top 30 because of the first act that takes place in the family's home in Enfield, North London, and towards the last act of the film, all involving the old man spirit that remains in the house. The first act is incredibly well done and really brandishes the 70s European aesthetic it's trying to depict on screen. Dark interior lighting with old-fashioned furnishings and dingy 1970s wooden flooring, avid rainy and cloudy weather, bluish, greenish, brownish hues, spooky, corner of your eyes, mysterious, or quick appearances of the old man apparition that are skillfully executed and relies on natural sounds with zero background musical score that only becomes a score when an instrumental string hits, when a sudden scare happens. It takes what was done in the first and does it with a slightly different and fresh approach. The family actually bolts out of the house towards the neighbors after a very supernatural event happens with the bedroom dresser, which is rarely shown in horror films. Fast forward past the crooked man sequence and there is a very interesting scene that pays homage to The Exorcist, yet in a different way that is actually pulled off. After this takes place, the movie dips in pacing and it starts to feel long-winded with too much inserted action. But it contains just enough solid material to place it in the top 30.
don't care what happens to her. She's your girlfriend, you take care of her.
I was a late bloomer to this one. Didn't see the whole film until some years ago. I was fully aware of it and its cult classic status, but hadn't actually taken the time to sit down and watch. Once I did, I got it. This special piece of cinematic creation is insane and actually legitimately disturbing. It's about a group of buddies that take a getaway trip to the distant woods to stay in a cabin and have a good time. They find something ancient that they shouldn't have tampered with and or even heard being recited, and boom, it calls forth a horde of evil spirits that were residing in the surrounding woods that then commence to one by one invade and possess members of the group to the extent that they literally transform into inhumane, grotesque beings. Then it's just about survival for whoever remains at that point. The makeup and location design are top-notch, foggy, mostly takes place at night, isolated, graphic, and deranged. It's like Night of the Living Dead, but with the crazy dial turned up to 10. Early 80s risque horror that feels like a forbidden snuff film. Never saw the 2013 remake, but most likely it was a shell of the original. But I could be wrong.
Quiet. He's coming. He's here. Let's go.
It's for Rob. Say something to him before he leaves.
Rob's awesome. I'm gonna miss it. Rob, have fun in Japan.
You owe me $11.
How are you gonna survive without Rob? He's like your main dude.
Yeah, no. Hey, how am I gonna survive without you?
I don't know, I'm like your main dude.
What was that noise?
It sounded like an animal.
Yeah, just relax. Everything.
Phone calls are pouring into the New York One newsroom as a thunderous, roaring sound.
Can you see something on the roof? What animal sounds like that? Like shaking everywhere, man. It's like tremors.
Looks like you should have left town a little bit earlier.
Tonight's gonna be the best night ever.
We all have that one movie that has a special place in our hearts as the defining film of our young adulthood, and we are taken back to that specific time of golden years when it's brought up or revisited. Cloverfield was released my sophomore year of college, so this film reflects those memories for me. Every time I watch it, it reminds me of my coming of age years, transferring into adulthood and experiencing the college life. It was a secret project by J.J. Abrams that had this intensely cryptic teaser trailer that I remember seeing in the theater, and it was intriguing as all hell. Had a shot of the Statue of Liberty's head flying towards the camera through downtown New York and just crashing to the ground. One of the best marketed trailers ever created, because it definitely had this unknown mystique about it due to it being so vague. Eventually saw it in the theater, and when I tell you I fell in love with this damn movie, I fell in love with this movie. I was slightly infatuated. It's found footage, so it's all shown through handheld camcorder recordings and is presented as preserved evidence that has been taken into possession by the government. It's epic and large scale, well-paced, genuinely comedic at times, incredibly realistic in its depiction of the gargantuan-sized event taking place in New York, obviously harkening back to 9/11 scale and trauma, visually dramatic and captivating. It has A1 sound design that really further drives home the intended realism. The script is fluid and refrains from being too wordy or expositional to make it natural and in the moment. Chaotic, again, on a scale similar to 9/11 but escalated, and definitely the most well-executed found footage disaster horror film of all time. Americanized Godzilla done right, and in the first-person view through the eyes of the citizens instead of third person. A hypothetical experiment that asks, what would it be like if this really happened?
Okay, here we go.
Welcome to Yonder, a wonderful development. It has all you'd need and all you'd want. Number 9. Number 9 is not a starter home. This house is forever.
Leave for a boy?
Do you have children?
No. It's not exactly what we're looking for.
That guy was so strange.
Yeah. Wait. No, I don't think this is the right way.
Yeah, this is the way we came in.
Number 9 again. Did we just do some kind of loop?
How have we just...
Want me to drive? Such a jerk. Because I think this is not possible. We can't make turns like this over and over.
We have gone this way, Tom. Oh my god. Hello?
What's happening? Maybe they'll let us go.
What if they don't come? What are we supposed to do? Should we just sit here and we wait to die? It's a boy.
Give a little time for the child within you. Don't be afraid to be young and free. Run to the locks and throw away the keys and
All we wanted
run you.
was a home.
You are home.
You creepy little mutant.
The magnum opus of using liminal space as a predominant element in film other than The Shining. Just found out about this some months ago, so missed seeing it in the theaters. But glad I eventually came across it, thanks to good old Reddit. Because this thing is nuts. Couple moves into a new neighborhood and everything is off right off the bat. Not one house looks different than the other. Every single property has the same footprint, plan, and front backyard layout. Even the sky looks off. The clouds don't even resemble real cloud formations, but rather never-ending copies upon copies of cartoonish single clouds. They cannot leave the neighborhood without ending up right back at their house, as if the neighborhood is in an infinite loop with no exit. As the film continues, things just get weirder and weirder to the point where you really realize they're entrapped in some eternal environment and are being watched and observed by a strange being that resembles a boy but ages abnormally fast and both acts and speaks inhuman. We eventually find out what it is without going into too much of the analysis and final expose of the plot and where they actually are. It's a super ethereal, cryptic, and hellish film that portrays two people lost and trapped within an eternally torturous existence with no escape, only to sink deeper into its depths.
I am so sorry for what your daddy passed down to you. But I wanted a child, the greatest gift of my life.
I'm visiting my mother tomorrow.
Hi, Carrot. It's Mom. I'm just calling to say that I'm so excited to see you tomorrow. You're my angel, and I love you. Okay, I love you. Okay, bye, sweetie. I love you.
Are you at the airport?
I'm on my way. It's not safe, is it? What do you think I should do?
I'm sure you'll do the right thing, sweetheart.
Welcome back.
I hit you with my car.
What?
I know.
What is this?
That's my little assistant health monitor. Feeling sad about going home, Beau? Must feel totally unreal.
I'm supposed to be leaving.
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
You will walk many miles. Dozens will become hundreds. Hundreds will become thousands. Your adventures will continue for years and years.
I just need to get home.
I know. Do you want the truth now?
If there was any a film that depicted cinematic surrealism infused with psychological horror, deeply rooted inner fears, spirituality, and residual trauma wrapped up into one introspectively heavy burrito, this is it. It's a masterpiece of abrasive manifestations of underlying emotional turmoil and lasting irresolution, broadcast in the realm of dreamy surrealism, and feels like you're watching someone's middle-of-the-night fever dream or even your own. It showcases a hefty smorgasbord of a range of multiple emotions: pain, elation, sorrow, peace, paranoia, and hidden fears that may have never been expressed. It delves into the mental and spiritual tribulation of Beau as he is faced with his subconscious dread towards certain death, societal degradation, and impending doom in a chaotic order, all while still cherishing gratifying hope, end-of-life fulfillment, internal desires of familyhood and parenthood, and the search for final resolve and peace. A visual expression of an unusual other-dimensional fever dream and their abstract essence, captured in a very poetic yet theatrical condition. A particular scene is completely composed as a stage play and is incredibly moving yet strange. The dreamlike imagery, the crisp cinematography and color palette, and the expressionist means of communicating to the viewer are all top-notch in execution. It intertwines optical beauty with a flock of buried emotions. Metaphysical connotations are scattered throughout for the viewer to recognize and relate to. This film is the pinnacle of modernist filmmaking of the 21st century and is considered, to me, the best film next to Hereditary that Ari Aster has ever directed.
Coming home.
We're gonna be at Grandma's house for a little bit.
If I belong, all will be
Nothing's gonna bother us. Not anymore. We have our son back.
when you're with
We are a family again.
Still happening.
What is?
Tell us, what does she want?
I heard voices in the hallway. Is there something wrong with Daddy, Mom?
Whatever it was that was haunting my family, it's not done with us.
I know what happened. I went into that place to get our son back, and something evil followed me. Get out of my head!
There's someone standing in front of you. He's talking to you.
What's he saying?
He's got your baby. 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 He's got your baby.
He's got your baby.
The follow-up to the phenomenal first chapter, Chapter 2, takes the same formula and throws in a different finale into the pot. Similar to the first, it accounts the spiritual battles of the Lambert family, and the different hauntings that take place are yet again topping the genre. There's a particular hospital scene alone that is one of the most eerie segments ever concocted in modern horror, and it's so effortlessly and subtly done that it didn't need a jump scare, but instead harnessed unsettling atmosphere, strange connotation, and ghastly imagery. There is another bedroom scene involving a wooden closet and a crowd of disheveled spirits that is incredible to watch. The spirits that appear in this thing are nightmarish, and certain scenes even implicate an invasion of other dimensional visitors without actually showing them, but through sound and unnatural events. The ending takes a turn into The Shining territory in a tribute fashion. That is an interesting direction for the film I have yet to fully be a fan of, even as a fan of The Shining. It derails the film into a different movie altogether, but I understand the contextual intent as to why the direction was taken. But the uniquely implemented spooky moments scattered here and there, and the old school fashion they are carried out, takes up the slack and keeps this residing in my top 30.
On Halloween night, 1977, America gathered around for a live TV event that shocked a nation. What happened was real. What you are about to see is the recently discovered master tape of what went to air that night.
With Mr.
Ladies and gentlemen, now, here's Mr. Mitch Jack
Late Night with the Devil.
This is already a cult classic and it was just released last year, so that outright explains just how out of the park the producers, the directors, and the cast and crew knocked it. The promo right before its release immediately caught my interest. A 70s era paranormal horror film that combines the analog, found footage, and paranormal genres in such a refreshing way that the final product is so extremely well executed in its replication and homage to 70s late night talk show television that it feels genuine and exacts a sense of vintage authenticity. It's like watching an old recording of a lost episode of a lost show that maybe once existed in an alternate timeline but was thrown into the obscurity of time. It perfectly mimics the era it's trying to imitate. At times, with such attention to detail that it's obvious much research and observation took place to create this retro time capsule of a horror film. A noteworthy addition to the found footage genre that significantly implements a great under-the-radar cast that sells this as an actual event, an emphasis on historical occult organizations, a fusion of practical and digital special effects that blend perfectly, and a pretty damn good 70s score and 70s TV musical pieces that nails the vintage vibe. Keep It Warm by Flo and Eddie, 1976, is a banger. It features a host's comeback into the late night television circuit and his desperate attempt to deliver a monumentally hair-raising episode of his television program, Night Owls, on Halloween night. But he gets more than he bargained for in his thirst for higher ratings and sponsors, and it explores his behind-the-scenes affiliations and secret measures he took and sacrificed in order to restore a shattered public perception and popularity to his eventual detriment. It's supernatural, retrograded, humorous at times, biographical, suspenseful, and well in line for the spooky season. Probably the best mainstream theatrical contribution to the analog horror genre as of recent.
I just want to tell you something.
What do you want to tell me?
You are my girl.
I love you, Jimmy.
What is that?
It's okay, there's nothing here. I haven't heard a dog bark or a car pass. Nothing.
There's someone out there.
Hello?
What is it?
It's my phone.
Oh my God.
We gotta get out of here. Then open the door, and I just want you to run, okay?
Why are you doing this to us?
Because you were home.
a modern entry into the slasher genre that had a healthy run in 70s and 80s Hollywood and also occurred rampantly in real life. It throws a refreshingly different spin on the very mainstream phenomena that turned Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Leatherface, Scream, and Jason Voorhees into household names. The Strangers is significantly unlike the overdone carbon copies of serial killer franchised monopolies that have plagued cinema, and achieves this in various ways. Since this is based on not only the Manson family murders, but the Ketty Cabin murders that took place in Ketty, California in 1981, it features a group of masked, knife-axe-wielding killers that creep up on the couple in the dark of night and traps them in like caged animals. The killers' identities are never discovered, unless you look up the cast online, and they remain as unknown maniacs that love to stalk and prey. It definitely carries the stalking serial killer torch in such a monumental way that it continues to be one of the best home invasion films ever made. Choosing to focus on a troubled couple living in a remote rural location versus a single main protagonist in a regular suburban neighborhood is an approach that is very similar to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Instead of a group of traveling strangers that stumble into their own doom, the couple here are simply minding their business and doom stumbles upon them. They happen to just live there, which was obviously inspired by the Sharon Tate and Ketty Cabin murders. Not only does this capture the fear surrounding home invasion, but captures the fear of facing a group of home invaders that resemble Scarecrow and drama theater characters. It shows the couple's isolation and how that is further reflected through the actions of the killers that feeds off that isolation to secure an inescapable trap. It even utilizes a skipping vinyl record that acts as a deranged soundtrack to the unknown events unfolding. Top-notch stuff indeed. I placed this installment in terms of quality and importance in the series after the first and before the third, ironically the order they were released. Paranormal Activity 2 is the descendant of the first entry, but with expansion upon the backstory and the themes. This one hones in on the generational curse that began to be exposed previously with focus on Katie, but now the lens is directed on her sister Christy, with Katie as a cameo or supporting character. This film is specifically a prequel in the timeline of events that led to the first entry in the series. Christy and her family think their home was invaded due to their house being completely ransacked, but the son wasn't harmed, so the husband, Daniel, gets surveillance cameras set up in order to catch any burglars on the property. The strange occurrence with the house being trashed was only the beginning and turned into a series of strange supernatural events happening around the house and the backyard pool, It becomes increasingly clear to Christy and the entire family, eventually even Daniel's flimsy skepticism gets challenged and broken by the end of the movie, that they are under attack by unseen forces from an underworld that have arrived due to a possible pact that an ancestor made for fame and fortune. What begins as creeping shadows and inanimate objects moving by themselves turns into full-blown angry poltergeist activity with violently forceful scare tactics and physical contact and harm done to Christy and the family dog that then transfers to Katie. It escalates to such a climax that it's clear that the family is not only plagued with these demonic entities that will not leave or let up, but are being threatened physically, mentally, and spiritually. It does not match up to its predecessor in terms of groundbreaking history making, but is still to this day miles above a plethora of other horror films since its release in 2010, even up to this year.
Tell me, what's a timberman want with being a wickie?
Just looking to earn a living, just like any man. Starting new.
On the run. Keeping secrets, are you?
No, sir.
Why don't you spill your beans? Why don't you spill your beans? Why don't you spill your beans? How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
I saw The Lighthouse at an independent film specialty theater that takes pleasure in showing these kinds of left-field artsy movies. It also hosts showings of decades-old classics, so it was very fitting to watch this particular film there. This is more of a psychological horror piece about 2 men working as lighthouse keepers on a remote island miles upon miles away from civilization, circa New England, 1890. With it being a period piece, it absolutely nails the antiquated old world feel. Filmed in black and white with an aspect ratio of a near square, the imagery is thick with dark shadows, misty grays, candle lantern lighting, and cloudy and dreary weather with rocky seaside landscapes. The environment is almost a character in itself. The imagery draws visual inspiration from photography of 1890s New England, maritime-themed French cinema from the 1930s, and symbolist art, so it automatically transports you to this late 19th century, early 20th century isolated and rustic world surrounded by a vast ocean. From the old-fashioned wardrobe to the sailor-mariner dialect to the bleak cinematography to the atmospheric sound design of distant foghorns, crashing waves, and gawking seagulls. It places these 2 dingy gentlemen inside of a small quarters to suffer each other's company with zero contact to the outside world for months on end. It's a given this would go south fast. As the days and the nights pass, both slowly fall into a form of cabin fever that gives birth to strong delusion, heightened erratic and intensely unhinged behavior, monstrous distrust, and combative squabbles. It takes a steep decline into visceral madness, akin to other well-known psychological horrors like The Shining and the Amityville Horror. Quite a drop into tumultuous insanity that it leaves the viewer to observe the maniacal events unfold like a speeding train with no brakes. Haven't seen anything like it. Shout out to Robert Eggers for his direction and A24 for being the top distributor of some of the most industry-defining films of modern cinema.
It's the kind of house they don't build anymore. A relic of a time when the world wasn't in such a hurry, when there was still time for a little charm and elegance. It has stood empty for a long while, and at the price, it is a bargain. For a growing young family, it is almost too good to be true.
What do you think?
I love it.
James Brolin, Margot Kidder, Rod Steiger in the Amityville Horror.
God's peace in this house.
Hello?
Hello, Kathy. Father Delaney, there's something very important.
What's all going wrong? We have to do something.
I'm coming apart! Oh, Mother of God, I'm coming apart!
28 days after the Lutz family moved into their dream house, they were running for their lives. What happened to them is an experience in terror you will never forget, and you will believe in the Amityville Horror. From the best-selling book that made millions believe in the unbelievable, the Amityville Horror.
Based on the 1977 book and the actual real-life Lutz family mass murders in 1974 in Amityville, New York. The film is about a newlywed couple that moves into a home with 2 second-floor windows that look like eyes, and where the DeFeo family murders happened in 1974. Slowly but surely, the demonic spirits that were there with the DeFeos and have probably increased in number since begin to possess George. His demeanor changes into being more volatile, as well as his body temperature apparently causing him to be cold all the time. One of the children begins to befriend an imaginary friend named Jody that later appears to Kathy as a red-eyed, demonic entity looking at her through the second-floor window. Eventually, the house has blood oozing from the walls, which was featured in The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror parody of this film titled Bad Dream House. This film has a suspenseful and uneasy feel and takes you into a collapsing household brought on by the lingering evils that have been there for years, pushing for destruction. The movie's climax is very similar to the climax of The Shining, Axe included, which came out a year after this, ironically, although not nearly as cinematically historic or groundbreaking in execution. Even though it's slightly similar to The Shining in terms of plot devices and subject matter, it doesn't go as far as The Shining. It's still creepy when it comes to the paranormal events. It's innovative and erratic in its own way that still keeps it in my top 30.
You know the accident up there?
Yeah.
Someone got hurt.
They did?
A lady. She broke her neck.
Oh my god, but you can see her?
Yes.
Where is she?
Standing next to my window.
Baby, what are you shaking? Cole, what's wrong?
Did you ever talk to your mom about how things are?
I don't tell her things.
Why not?
Because she doesn't look at me like everybody else, and I don't want her to. I don't want her to know.
Know what?
I see dead people walking around like regular people.
I don't see anything. Are you sure they're there?
Sometimes you feel it inside, like you're falling down real fast. You ever feel the prickly things on the back of your neck?
Yes.
That's them. They get mad. It gets cold.
How often do you see them?
All the time. They're everywhere. They want me to do things for them.
I think that they know that you're one of these very rare people who can see them. So you need to help them.
What if they don't want to help?
I don't think that's the way it works.
How do you know for sure?
Is anyone there?
Please make them leave.
I'm working on it.
A modern cult classic that trails the path of a school kid named Colt and his new psychologist confidant that seems to always just be there with him, yet nobody else sees him. It combines effectively disturbing ghostly sightings with schoolyard drama and a mystery revealed that resembles a Rod Serling plot twist from The Twilight Zone. I remember watching this for the first time in one of my classes in middle school, believe it or not. For what formal reason this could have been shown to us has yet to be determined, but I do know one thing. That teacher was definitely a real one for putting this on. During that classroom showing on one of the school's roller televisions, 2 scenes were seared into my brain. The scene with the wandering 70s era boy walking into Cole's bedroom with the gunshot wound to the back of the head, and the poisoned girl that appeared in Cole's tent, sick and throwing up due to her dying from her parents putting cleaning liquid in her soup. The boy with the gunshot wound was creepy enough, but the imagery of the girl vomiting in the tent spooked me out to the max. This film was certainly a big deal and the topic of conversation when it got released, in effect sending a chain reaction of parodies and references and other forms of entertainment media. That "I see dead people" line was popping up like weeds in multiple TV shows and movies. There's elements of anti-bullying, social alienation, mother and son relationships, childhood trauma, and true crime blended in with the various sporadic paranormal phenomena that are still to this day eerie as hell. From the 60s era angry housewife poltergeist in the kitchen that threw the cabinet doors wide open, to the spirit of the bloody bicyclist seen through the car window that just died in a traffic accident. The scares here are forever burned into your memory for years to come. It's somber, disturbing, well shot, and a pop culture phenomenon that was the final jolt for 90s horror that closed out the decade with a memorable boom.
Of terror that swept America is here. The Shining.
a film by Stanley Kubrick, starring Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall. Now playing in the West End and Sunday all over London. The Shining.
I'm just gonna state right off the gate that I think this is the best horror film, and wait for it, the best film of all time. First introductions to anything of this movie were from the VHS covers of Jack Nicholson sitting on the shelf at Blockbuster in the 90s. From top horror movies, moments, countdowns, similar to what I'm doing now, and then eventually seeing The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror segment, The Shining, in middle school, circa 2001. I saw the entire movie for the first time in high school, and I was enthralled. As of today, I've seen the film at least 3 times in the movie theater for its recent re-releases and 4K remaster, and a gazillion other times. This thing is a timeless masterpiece. It does not age. You watch it now, and it doesn't even feel like an 80s film. It just feels like it's not constricted to a specific time period because of how incredible it looks, especially in 4K. Brilliant acting from both Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson, and arguably Nicholson's best performance, next to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This whole film from start to finish is a work of visual and audible art. There hasn't been a movie made like it since, and there wasn't a movie made like it before. The deeply harrowing Wendy Carlos score is unlike anything else I've heard in a film, and its usage for The Shining fits snug. It's heavily foreboding, chaotic, and unearthly, providing a supernatural backdrop to the supernatural events on screen. Don't even get me started on the camera work. This is the first film to use a Steadicam to get stable tracking shots, which was masterfully handled and gave the scenes a deliciously smooth and composed movement, as if the camera was floating in midair, capturing the madness. Spatial symmetry, emphasis on the difference in size of spaces in relation to the characters, and spatially aware camera angles used to build a sense of underlying dread and bullying isolation. You get placed within this vastly maze-like catacomb of a hotel and watch the insanity unravel. You can cut the tension and visceral horror with a knife.
Something beyond comprehension is happening to a little girl on this street. In this house, a man has been sent for as a last resort to try and save her.
It's The Exorcist. Need I say more? Probably one of the most widely known creepiest films of all time. Ahead of its time, historically significant, and ingrained into pop culture. I've read people threw up, fainted, and walked out the theaters when it came out. The original theatrical trailer alone is more unsettling than most horror released these days. I mean, come on.
All right, here we go. Hey, ladies.
Hi.
Hey. Oh, it's Katie. Woo-hoo-hoo. Katie, wave hi to the camera, Katie. Hey, Christy, you want to say hi? Come on, give us a wave here, Christy.
Whatever happened to us when we were little, I don't remember anything.
Whatever it was, it thrived on fear. The more we paid attention to it, the worse it got.
Okay, I think it's on. Remember the rules? Yes. Say Bloody Mary 3 times. Okay, I'm gonna turn off lights. Okay, you ready? Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. I'm scared. Stop! I'm sorry. It's not funny.
Not as good as the first two, but still highly memorable and a different welcoming approach with the whole 80s flashback to when Katie and Christy were kids for the entirety of the film. I'm a classified 80s connoisseur, so since this takes place in 1988, it was right up my alley from the jump. 80s footage, 80s decor, 80s style and fashion, with a bunch of spooky content thrown in. Besides the Paranormal Activity scares and the retro style, I really dig the natural interactions between characters. The humor isn't forced, which the other two films executed well in my opinion too, and feels like you're watching actual home video of a couple of dudes working on videos and hanging out in a garage joking around, or a married couple smoking weed in bed and trying to record a sex tape. It's got an 80s suburban middle-class charm. It just flows very well and takes a slice of life route before going into the serious haunts, and even when certain strange things happen, the discussions and character interactions afterwards are just as entertaining. It has a different feel than the first two, but it keeps the same essence. The creepy factor lingers and definitely is not vacant. Although by this time, there's only so much they can do without being repetitive. So they honestly keep the scares fresh. From the poltergeist occupying Christie's bedroom's crawl space to the pagan cult connections of the grandmother teased in the second film finally being seen. The two scenes that stand out the most is the slow pan of the miniature bedsheet ghost that crept up on the babysitter all by herself, all the way from near the front door to the kitchen across the house. It takes its time, leads up to the moment the sheet drops and disappears, and it doesn't need to show anything else other than the babysitter's reaction. The other is when Julie walked into the kitchen and all of the furniture dropped down from being supernaturally suspended on the ceiling. Impeccable scene. It's a memorable and nostalgic piece of media that throws some legit weirdness at you while still keeping it fresh.
And now, my dear friends, I'd like to dedicate this song to all of you out there, wherever you may be. This song is for you. Love today, don't play the game of time. Things that happened in the past happen in your mind. In your mind, oh, in your mind, in your mind. Forget your mind and you'll be free.
There are very few sequels that work, but this is one of the very few. This was released a decade after Insidious Chapter 2, so Dalton is preparing for college, Josh and Renee are divorced, and Dalton's relationship with Josh has suffered a major blow, and they're not that close. Clearly, there has been a serious rift between them because of what happened in Chapter 2 and the following years that has yet to be resolved. So we see that father-son damaged relationship get rekindled by the same spiritual abilities that brought them together in the first installation. It shows the emotional disconnect and then the revitalization through the very gift they've both possessed since childhood that allows them to not only see and enter the spirit realm, aka the further, but are also attacked and targeted by similar demons. Insidious 3 and The Last Key don't really exist in the series to me, but this definitely bridged the widening gap and made up for the last two failures of the series. Technically, to compose a hypothetical trilogy, the third film accurately continues the story and wraps up the timeline. Two of the most standout scenes are when Josh is getting a CT scan and the electricity shuts off, insinuating he's now in the further, leading to this unknown being fast crawling towards him coming from the dark depths of the machine. The other is Dalton walking through the further in his dormitory and getting tracked down by something amongst the fog. It's a perfect close to this franchise and without a doubt finds final closure for Josh and Dalton's once strained relationship. A touching family drama wrapped up into a paranormal popcorn flick.
I'm scared.
Mom, what's happening to us?
There are 4 spirits in your house.
What does it want with us?
It wants to kill you.
Protect us. Don't let it kill my children.
The fact that this underrated and obscure masterpiece is a TV movie is a feat worth acknowledging. This is probably the most perfect rendition and full-on adaptation of the famous Smurl family hauntings of the 70s and 80s. It's masterfully spooky and captures the multitude of things that the Smurl family experienced in their home that has been documented in a published book and in a vintage, candid interview with both Jack and Janet Smurl. This makes The Others and other highly regarded 90s horror films look like Sesame Street. It doesn't do jump scares, it builds on the scares. It creates a moment and lets it play out at a pace that's so damn eerie and true to life. Slow scares, immaculately conceived, ones that exudes otherworldly atmosphere and distinct visuals that depends on the unnerving nature of what's being shown in real time versus just showing you something for a split second and relying strictly on jump cuts and things that pop into the camera. There's dark shadows, disembodied voices, ghastly sounds originating from upstairs, manifestations and appearances of various entities, deceptive vocal mimicking, an unplugged appliance catching on fire, torturous screaming coming from the house when it's vacant that even the neighbors can hear, and objects being physically tampered with either through teleportation or brash destruction. It's the pure definition of obscure media because it's a TV movie, so never theatrically released. This film is an under-the-radar underdog of a movie that has developed a following of people who appreciates it.
Don't check your dial, folks. You didn't tune into Transylvania's public access station. No, sir. Tonight is Halloween.
Halloween is Satan's night, the night of the devil.
reporter Frank Stewart has a special Halloween treat in store for viewers tonight. He'll be leading a group of paranormal experts to the infamous Weber house.
Do you know what happened here in the Weber house?
Some people got killed. Their son went haywire.
Are there any spirits in the house?
It's scary. That's far out.
That or
Something strange going on in this house. Animal mutilation, paranormal disturbance. Hey, whoa, hold on. This is not staged. Hello? Is this the work of the devil? Folks, we are going where no camera crew has gone before. Father, perform the exorcism. This is not some Halloween prank. The grisly evidence of the supernatural is real. We'll be right back.
You're watching the WNUF Halloween Special.
The magnum opus of analog vintage found footage. This right here is a prime example of how to create something new with a type of media that's decades old. This right here is a prime example of how to pay authentic homage to 80s broadcast television. This right here is how you take a specific medium that has become either niche or damn near extinct to the mainstream and market it back to the public in the same fashion that made that particular medium memorable and or lovable. WNUF is the culmination of honest passion for 80s horror, vintage television, old school Halloween, and blended with all of the talented visual artists, video editors, screenplay writers, great period actors, and advertisement expertise. The final product is an 83-minute love letter to the 1980s in the form of a mock TV broadcast of a live visit to a murder house on Halloween night with a host, a live audience, and guests. The commercial breaks are originally created 80s era ads, and they are brilliant. I've never seen a film like this recreate the feel of 80s commercials, let alone nail the authenticity of the feel, the look, the writing, and the format and formula, both musically and visually. The ads are just as important to the totality of the project as the main story and helps build upon this world that this movie is in to make it feel even more cohesive and authentic. The whole thing is just a breath of fresh air if you're a nostalgia nerd like I am. This is an innovative work of expressive art, and it's for all the like-minded lovers of VHS, spooky retro content, and witty humor that works.
96. Everybody's coming to Phil's Carpet Warehouse.
But the terror is...
And right now...
Manipulating.
Viewer discretion is advised.
What happened to Frank Stewart?
You are not gonna like the answer to this.
We want to hear about it. These stories and more. WNUF.
The long-awaited sequel to WNUF. This was teased a bit prior to the release, and the rollout was great. Just order a copy online, and the VHS tape got mailed to you in a customized case with an accompanied in-theme video booklet. It was perfect. Very creative and in line with how WNUF was first rolled out. It is the successor to WNUF in that it carries a similar format and layout, but this time it takes place in the 90s. So a little more reminiscent of my own upbringing, although I experienced the tail end of the 80s era into the early 90s. This film seems to be around 1995 or 1996, so everything reflects that, from the commercials of course to the types of programming. This time, it isn't a local news broadcast. It's an episode of a daytime talk show parodying Ricky Lake or Jerry Springer, followed by an episode of a show taking inspiration from the X-Files or those offbeat venture into the unknown series around that time. Again, it goes for the feel of the 90s, just like its predecessor went for the feel of the 80s, so it's spot on for the parodies. I prefer WNUF over this, but this has a unique and more familiar charm that takes me back to Sunday evenings on television as a kid for some reason, and it reminds me of an alternate universe version of Fox back when Fox was Fox. The ads are yet another love letter to retro media, but they are composed aesthetically different to fit the time period it's being inspired by. The video isn't as choppy and lo-fi as WNUF because it's the 90s, so the technology was a little bit better and it shows in the visuals. Definitely would love another sequel set in 2000 or 2001 with possibly a Y2K event to make a trilogy. Much love to everyone involved in both these movies because their creativity, effort, and skill into throwing something like this together is respectable. Well, happy spooky season.